Guys, so I'm just going to show you what I have been using lately for mock drafting. So I created this table called ADP Lookup, and what I did is I have it so whatever pick I select here, so if we're at 30 or whatever, it shows me who is currently going at 30, and then as well as the players that are going 4 above and 4 below that spot. And then based off league variation and whatever dumbasses you have in your league drafting quarterbacks like 101, this should sort of give you an idea of who will be available. Obviously, leagues vary greatly, but I just like having an idea of who might be available at that pick. I'm importing all this from this ADP tab right down here. I believe I'm getting all this data from FantasyPros. Ignore the fact that there is a name on both sides. That has something to do with the indexing, which is we'll save for a later, much more complex video. But anyway, I'm just taking all this ADP data and then auto-populating it to that ADP lookup table. And then what I'm doing is taking whatever names populate here, I'm taking them into this table here. And I currently believe that these are projected. Yeah, they have to be projected because they have decimals in here. But you can have whatever you want auto-populated here. It could have last year's stats, projections, things like consistency rankings and starter percentages. That's some things that I wanted to touch on a little bit. So this tool can be very helpful when you're mock drafting, because like if you want to have an idea of what kind of strategy, if you want to go all wide receiver, no running back, or if you want to go running back, wide receiver, whatever the hell you want to do. It gives you an idea of what kind of team you're going to have. I think consistency ranking is an important thing to have as a way to look at these players side by side, something that you don't necessarily get in most mock draft software. Speaking of which, I use FootballGuys Draft Dominator. It's incredible. Highly recommend it. You can customize your league settings. You can customize keepers. You can even change the way that people draft in your league, which I think is incredible because I have a lot of dumbasses in my league and I know exactly what they're going to do. But most mock draft software doesn't allow you to have a guy make idiotic picks on a regular basis, but this one does, so it's great. Anyway, back to it. So this consistency ranking I think is very helpful because, I got this data from Matthew Berry. I'm not sure if I mentioned that, but excellent data to have. But this gives you an idea of how consistent this player was on a week-to-week basis. It's not something like, oh, this guy finished, Julio Jones, I think is a prime example. He finished what? I want to say he finished as the wide receiver 7. Let me do a quick check on that as of last year. In my league, JK, wide receiver 4. But if you owned him, it did not feel like he was the goddamn wide receiver 4. And that's because he was inconsistent as hell. I mean, the dude would put up a game of 40 points when he had 200 goddamn yards receiving. But then the next game, he would shit the bed and have like 6.2. So it's like, it really depends on what kind of team you want to end up with at the very end. And I think having something like consistency ranking is helpful in that aspect because it's fine to have these boom bust players like these Sammy Watkins type guys, but you don't want your whole team being like that. And I think having that to look at side by side is a great tool to have when you're mock drafting and kind of getting an idea of what type of strategy you want to take into your league's draft. As far as all this works, I'm just using Vlookup. For those of you who are familiar with Excel, it's pretty simple. Once you have the names here from the ADP, all I'm doing is copying the names over here. It auto-copies. And then just having a Vlookup for all the statistics. Currently, like I said, I have the 2018 projections, but I think what I'd also like to add in there is like 2017 statistics because I have the consistency ranking and starter percentages for that. Oh, by the way, starter percentage is just when you're looking at how often that player finished as a wide receiver 1 or 2 or running back 1 or 2, etc. It just gives you an idea of how often, in comparison to the rest of the field, he was actually worthy of starting. So that kind of factors into the consistency ranking. You'll see that they're typically fairly well correlated in that aspect. So yeah, I mean, this is just a helpful tool to have when you're mock drafting, when you're just trying to get a good idea of what players might be there, and if you were between certain players, why you would go that route.